¿Qué tal? Bienvenidos. Es un placer compartir junto a ustedes este espacio. Bien, antes de comenzar, quiero contarles que en el lado derecho de sus pantallas van a encontrar allí un recuadro azul que les va a permitir tener acceso a la traducción simultánea en español y también en portugués. Así que ya estamos listos. Muy buenos días para todos. Son las 9:09 de la mañana, hora central. ¿Y sabían ustedes que a esta hora, en cualquier lugar del mundo, miles de personas están acudiendo a una cita médica? Están esperando un diagnóstico o celebrando la terminación de un ciclo de quimioterapia, o están además ilusionados por la donación de un órgano, inyectándose insulina para seguir viviendo, o necesitan asistencia respiratoria, o tal vez una atención por deficiencia renal, y que otros tantos están ingresando a urgencias porque algo en el camino simplemente cambió sus vidas. Bien, a esta misma hora, a quienes estamos aquí, pues nos une el quehacer por esta cantidad de personas, por aquellas quienes tienen que pagar un tratamiento médico y por otras que están luchando día a día para acceder a los servicios de salud en un sistema complejo de navegar cuya cobertura es limitada. Así que gracias por estar hoy presentes en este primer Foro Ejecutivo de Salud liderado por Medtronic y el Consejo de las Américas, donde los líderes de nuestra región se unen para hablar de los desafíos y posibles caminos y para que millones de personas tengan acceso a la tecnología para la salud y además soluciones que les permitan mejorar su vida. Gracias por unirse a esta conversación sobre el futuro del sector de la salud, con la esperanza de saber que con colaboración podemos reducir las brechas de la inequidad en salud para que miles de personas puedan recibir una noticia esperanzadora sin necesidad de postergar su dolor. Quiero saludar inicialmente a Hugo Villegas, vicepresidente y presidente de Medtronic para América Latina y anfitrión de este Foro Ejecutivo en Salud. Hugo, muy buenos días.
Gracias, Claudia. Bienvenidos, hola a todos, al primer Foro Ejecutivo en Salud 2021, Líderes de Cambio. Quiero iniciar por agradecer al Consejo de las Américas por aceptar cooperar con nosotros y servir de anfitriones para este foro, a los conferencistas, a los panelistas y a la audiencia que tuvimos esta mañana registrados alrededor de 900 personas para participar en este foro. Muchas gracias. El objetivo de hoy es juntos trazar un camino de transformación requerida debido a los múltiples desafíos que se presentan en nuestro sector salud pre y post pandemia. La dinámica que vamos a seguir, vamos a escuchar de expertos y líderes que nos darán sus ideas sobre temas como modelos de salud alternativos, cómo mejorar el acceso de los latinoamericanos a la salud. Recordemos que 1 de cada 3 latinoamericanos no tiene acceso a la salud. Importante trabajar y escuchar ideas sobre la equidad, la calidad y la sostenibilidad de nuestros sistemas de salud en Latinoamérica. Líderes de cambio. Y para ello hemos invitado al CEO de Medtronic, Chief Executive Officer, Geoff, quien asumió su posición en el año 2020 y desde entonces ha trabajado con todo su equipo en un gran propósito de transformación, movilizando la empresa y todo nuestro entorno a ser cada día más audaces en nuestros planes de cumplir nuestra misión, aliviar el dolor, restaurar la salud y extender la vida. Geoff, good morning. Thank you for being here with us. And now I'll pass on the mic to you. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you so much, Hugo. And I'm just really thrilled to be here. First of all, I apologize for not being able to do this discussion in Spanish. I did, when I was in college, I did have a roommate that I lived with for a year who was from Chihuahua. He grew up in Chihuahua, Mexico. But I'm afraid the Spanish that he taught me is not suitable for this venue. So I will keep it in English. And I plan to talk about three topics here: some healthcare trends in some what we're seeing in the healthcare environment, and some healthcare trends that we're seeing today, and then how this is affecting Medtronic's strategy and where we're going as a company. And then finally, maybe some lessons learned from COVID. I know we're not out of COVID yet, but we've been in this for 18 months, and I think we've all learned quite a lot. And I thought I'd share with you some of Medtronic's lessons learned. So why don't we move to the next slide here? The next slide gets at some of the environmental forces at play in healthcare. And I don't think they shouldn't be too new, but I thought I'd provide some color context here on these. And, I see 6 major environmental trends. First, the rising cost of healthcare. I mean, it has continues to, in developed markets become too big a part of the budget. And in some developing markets, the cost is really prohibitive to providing access at scales for so many people, which right down there below, health equity and access. And this is an issue all over the world, whether you live in a developing market or a very developed market like the United States. There's still unacceptable amount of people that don't have access to good care. So the cost and the access are linked, but they are distinct. But these are 2 big ones. And I think now more than ever, the healthcare industry, governments around the world are very focused on health equity and ensuring access. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. The other, coming out of the pandemic, healthcare is also at the forefront of all, consumers around the world, as well as governments, in that the role that healthcare plays, how important it is, and when we do have a pandemic, what the impact it has, not just on society and people in public health and well-being, but also on the economy. And so, healthcare is really at the forefront of everyone's minds. And I was just in Europe getting ready in Italy, making recommendations in advance of the G20 that Italy's going to be hosting, and policy recommendations to governments. And just talking to a lot of the world leaders, it's clear that healthcare is forefront of their mind. And I think a lot of that is because of the pandemic. At the same time, even before the pandemic, consumer expectations, consumers, patients, their expectations are changing. They're getting more engaged in their healthcare. They're probably not engaged enough, but more engaged, and they're much more aware of alternatives they have out there. And I think we as a healthcare industry need to start treating patients as human beings, not just patients. And there is a difference, and we can't just be concerned about the clinical outcomes, although that's super important, but also lifestyle choices that people make and want. And also harness the opportunity to empower patients. The other piece is there's just, and I'm going to talk about this, just so much technology innovation in healthcare right now. So much technology innovation in general, and that is coming into healthcare, whether it's enabling, it's redefining the art of what's possible. You've seen what the vaccine has done and how quickly the pharma industry and biotech industry, how they've come up with these vaccines and the impact that they're having at high 90% efficacy. It's just amazing the impact it's had on people's health and well-being, and giving us optimism that we can get through this pandemic. But beyond biotech, there's a lot of other technology trends out there: miniaturization of electronics, more computing power, cloud computing, robotics. There's just a number of technology changes that are finding their way into medtech products. And in addition to all those things that I just mentioned, you've got data and AI, and it's in data and AI, in my opinion, particularly the amount of data we have and our ability to use that and apply data or AI and machine learning is the most profound technology shift. But all these technology changes are really coming into healthcare. And in Medtronic, we call this putting the tech into medtech. And it's really having a profound impact on all 3 of the universal healthcare needs: improving outcomes, lowering cost, and improving access. And I'll talk about technology is the way forward there. And then finally, collaboration and partnerships. Now more than ever, in talking to governments, and talking to large, health systems around the world, we're hearing much more, and we're seeing and feeling much more of a desire to partner. recognizing that a vendor or supplier relationship, especially for a company as big as Medtronic, is not good enough. And governments and health systems and individual physicians are looking much more for deep collaboration and partnership to really advance, one was to help us get out of the pandemic, but really to advance healthcare and, whether it be outcomes, access, or lowering costs. So these are things that I see in talking to governments and health systems around the world, but also just in our business. And so I would argue, this is how we're seeing the environment. If you go to the next slide here, before I talk to how this is affecting Medtronic's strategy, I just want to make sure I introduce Medtronic to everybody. I know you all know Medtronic in one way, shape, or form, but I just thought I'd cover some of the basics. And first, it starts with our mission. And the mission was written. Medtronic was started in 1949, so it's over 70 years old, and the mission was written in 1960, so it's over 60 years old, and not a word has changed. And this mission written in 1960 was very forward thinking. You could see here it talks about alleviating pain, restoring health, and extending life, and so that gets to patient outcomes. And it talks about how we're going to use biomedical engineering to do that. So really, those two tenets really define what the company is and is not. And then the next four tenets get into how we do things, right? With the greatest reliability and quality. We make a fair profit, and then, fair is a key word there. And then, talking about the personal worth of employees, and our being a good corporate citizen in our communities. And these latter two concepts were very nascent and weren't really understood in 1960. And our founder, Obaka, when he wrote this, was very forward thinking. And this mission guides our decisions on a daily basis. And I can tell you, it's really helped me as a new CEO. I took over as Medtronic's chairman and CEO really at the start of the pandemic in March of or April of 2020. And having a mission like this taking over this big CEO job right in the height of the pandemic, this mission is something I used every day to help shape my decisions in a very trying time. So the mission has stood the test of time. It's really Medtronic's North Star, and I can tell you it's something we use as an active tool to shape our decisions. If you go to the next page, it talks a little bit more about Medtronic, who we are. 90,000 people worldwide, over 90,000, 20,000 people in Latin America. So a large component of our people are in Latin America in all kinds of different roles, from sales to clinical research to some R&D to manufacturing. The Latin American market is a very strategic market for us. And then, look, there's a lot of awards over the last 18 months in particular that we've received, but Fortune's Most Admired Company, one of the top and most admired companies, but also one of the top, very top in Fortune's poll of the companies that are changing the world. I'm particularly proud of that one, having an impact on the world. You talk about in the middle here, we're a technology company. We do a lot of technology innovation and clinical research, and you see we spend over $2.5 billion a year. And that is growing very fast. We grew that 10% over the year before. Or so this talks about our fiscal year 2021 budget. Our fiscal year 2022, which we're in right now, is 10% higher. It's the largest increase of R&D in our company's history. So we're putting a lot into innovation, both technology innovation, product innovation, and clinical innovation. You can see 300 plus clinical trials around the world. And we'll talk about a lot of patents and the number of scientists and engineers as part of Medtronic. So it's a very innovation-oriented company, and these are some of the numbers that quantify that. And then, our businesses, which I'll show a little bit more detail, they're the areas that we're in. We treat 70 conditions in the human body, improve the lives of 72 million patients a year. That's 2 patients every second. And it's in these basic 4 areas: cardiovascular, neuroscience, surgery, and diabetes. If you go to the next page here, it goes to our commitment, our bold ambition, and starting into the Medtronic strategy. And it really talks to becoming the global healthcare technology leader. This is something we as a company drew a line in the sand here and said this is our bold ambition to become the global healthcare technology leader, not just med tech, but all of healthcare. And this involves us not just having great products and therapies, but also advancing the science, technology platforms, scientific discovery, clinical discovery. It's an exciting time right now for the company. We are very healthy financially. We're putting a lot into innovation, into R&D, clinical trials, technology innovation. We have the best product pipeline in our company's history, which I'll show a little bit in a second. And we're at a time in a moment in time where we're really at the nexus of healthcare. We talked about all the changes going on in healthcare and how it's first and foremost in so many people's mind around the world, especially coming out of the pandemic. And the nexus or intersection of that plus technology innovation. We talked about miniaturization of devices and more computing power in the device, plus computing power in the cloud, robotics, data and AI. It's just a really amazing time to be at the intersection of these two things. And our ambition here is to be the undisputed global healthcare technology leader. If you move to the next page here, it gets into a little bit more detail of the different conditions that we treat pretty much all over the body, as you can see. And this is I showed you the 4 areas that we're in: cardiovascular, diabetes, neuroscience, and surgery. These are the 20 business units that we have in the company in those areas. And this is a recent change of going from these 4 big groups down to 20 smaller operating units. Again, all part of our ambition to be the world's technology leader in healthcare. And what this does is makes our businesses smaller, closer to the customer, closer to the physician and the patient and healthcare administrators and policymakers, and allows us to innovate quicker and be more decisive. And so these are, you see 20 businesses here. You have our diabetes business, and then you have 19 other businesses in cardiovascular, neuroscience, and surgery. This is how we have the company structured. And we're seeing benefits from this already in terms of, the pace of innovation, our, where we are, how close we are with our customers. And like I said, it's an exciting time for us. And we did, in addition to making some structural changes, we really refreshed and took a look at our strategy last year and have begun to, go down the path of a evolved strategy here. If you go to the next page, it really gets at, the 4. I can talk all day about our strategy and where we're going, but I'll keep it to these 4 areas. And if I leave you with anything, I leave you with these are the 4 areas that we're committed to. And if we do these 4 things, or when we do these 4 things right, I'm confident that we will be, by all metrics, the global leader, global technology leader in healthcare. And it starts on the far left here with better outcomes for the world. And I want to be clear when I talk about outcomes that we're focused on all 3 outcomes that you think about in healthcare. Patient outcomes, so improved clinical outcomes for the patient, again, driven by our technology. The second is improved access for patients all around the world. And I'll give you some examples of what I mean by that. Again, enabled by our technology. And third, lowering the cost. And doing this all at the same time using technology. And the second category here talks about, we call it life transforming technology. So, this is in many cases taking many different, electrical, mechanical, material science technologies, chemical technologies, data and AI, merging them together, computing power, to really, create technologies across a broad range of conditions that redefine what's possible in healthcare. And these things are, I think, what Medtronic's known for, but we're taking it to another level of innovation here. And I'll show you some of our technology that's coming out in the market and already available. The third area is really putting people first, and it starts with our patients. Our patients have to be at the center of everything we do. And we can't just look at them as clinical patients, but also, like I said earlier, as human beings, and think through how our technology impacts their daily life and make it easier to engage in their healthcare and to engage in their therapy. So putting the patient at the center, not just as a patient, but as a human being, and taking into account their lifestyle choices. And so when we design our therapies and our products, we take that into account. The patients they want to get better, but they also want to live a certain lifestyle at the same time. So, and this also is true about our physician partners and our hospital partners, in that, we've got to make Medtronic easier to deal with. And that's been something we've been working on for the last couple of years, is simplifying in how we deal with customers, whether you're a physician or a hospital administrator, making Medtronic easier to deal with. So this is the putting people first. And then finally, we couldn't help but spike out and separate this one component of innovation. We're calling it insight-driven care, but the whole trend around data, artificial intelligence, automation, and what that can do for healthcare, and how it's putting us at an inflection point and rapidly accelerating our innovation, helping us have greater efficacy and broader scale, greater scale with our innovation. Data and AI is doing this, and I'll show you some examples here, in a second. Why don't we go to the next slide, and I'll, hit one more slide here. There you go. Hit some of this innovation. You see here a couple of examples, and I'll start with two examples I have with me here. One is our leadless pacemaker right there, called the Micra AV, and here's you see it on the slide, and this is what it actually looks like. You can see it's tiny, and it's the first pacemaker out there that doesn't require wires or leads. It doesn't require a surgical procedure, a cut down procedure. This is all inserted right into your chamber of your heart with a catheter. So it's a very minimally invasive therapy. It gets great clinical results. This is really disrupting the whole cardiac rhythm market. It's been growing, anywhere from 40 to 90% on every quarter for the last 2 or 3 years, and it's covering more and more patients. And again, this is an example of in this case, miniaturization of electronics to really minimize the impact of the procedure and not sacrifice anything on outcomes. Another one that's not out yet in Latin America, but will be, in the not too distant future, is our PillCam Genius, which is a great example of how data and AI, in addition to miniaturization, is disrupting, healthcare. And here you got, this pill that I just showed you is going to disrupt how colonoscopies are done around the world, and it's already happening right now in the UK. With the health system there has adopted this for a large number of their patients who, because during the pandemic, they've gotten a long waiting list of patients waiting for colonoscopies. And the traditional method of a colonoscopy, which no one likes, a lot of prep, you have to go into the hospital, get anesthesia, and you have a number of physicians, at least 2, if not 3 in the room, performing this procedure. That's expensive, obviously. It takes infrastructure that many countries don't have, and there's risks associated with that procedure. Now to convert that into a pill, it's just a great example how technology is changing things. And so here on a colonoscopy, 7 out of 10 colonoscopies, there's nothing wrong with the patient, and you don't need to do any surgical procedures. 3 out of 10, you do need to remove a polyp or a cancer before it grows. So this, but this you give this pill to all 10 of those patients, only 3 of them will have to go into the hospital on average here. And it creates all kinds of capacity for health systems and lowers cost and improves access for patients that otherwise couldn't get a colonoscopy, a diagnostic colonoscopy, which was one of the standard of care of preventing colon cancer. So, there's an example that's out in the UK, and looking forward for this getting in Latin America. You see our a new diabetes pump on the page here. I didn't bring one of those with me, but it is powered by AI to help predict patients' blood glucose levels and apply the therapy early. Which when you do that, you get a much better clinical effect. And this pump is allowing diabetic patients to control their blood sugars, what they call in this industry staying in range, higher than any other product out there. And I know it's launched in many parts of Latin America, and it's getting the best, what they call time in range of any pump out there in the world. Again, another example of data and AI, like the pill cam, because the pill cam, it wouldn't be possible without AI, because this is within this pill is a video technology that beams the videos into your phone, into the cloud, where we run artificial intelligence to pick out the colon cancer or precancerous polyps. And that replaces the physician having to look at it. And quite frankly, the AI does a better job than physicians in terms of catching more polyps, especially physicians that are tired at the end of the day after doing a lot of colonoscopies. So again, both the diabetes pump, the pill cam Genius, are great examples of how we're using AI. Another one is our neurostimulator here for Parkinson's disease and essential tremor and dystonia. Here, for the first time in healthcare, we're able to put a device in your body that can record signals in your brain. Recording a signal in your brain is a huge technological feat that no one's done before. We're able to have this device, a commercial device that records signals in the brain, and it's a 1,000,000 to 1, the signal to noise ratio in the brain. So it's, recording a signal in the brain is like if I were in an airport in Sao Paulo, and there was myself and you were 100 meters apart, standing right next to a big 737 plane with its engine spooled up, and then I whisper to you and you can hear me. So with all that background noise, when I whisper, you're 100 meters away, you can hear me. That's how hard it is to pick up a signal in the brain. We've learned how to do that, and it allows us to titrate our therapy so that patients get just the right amount of therapy, just at the right time, and personalize this therapy for patients. And as we record signals in the brain, we're also learning a lot about the brain for future disease states for us to tackle. And then finally, I'll talk about our robotic system, which actually had its first procedures in Latin America, in Panama and Chile. Robotic surgery is disruptive. I do believe robotic surgery in many different areas is going to become standard of care around the world. And again, we have data and AI as a part of this, and we're building it. We don't have it today, but we're working towards. Just think about a self-driving car, a self-driving robot that can do surgical procedures on its own, based on imaging of the patient and personalizing a surgical plan, and then executing that plan with great precision and leading outcomes. So robotics has a chance to, as we like to say, democratize good surgery. And so you're not as reliant on the skill of your surgeon. Through the robot, you're getting, the skill set of the leading surgeons that have been built into the artificial intelligence algorithms that drive these robots. And, so right now they're more physician controlled. Next step would be providing real-time feedback to physicians during surgery. Don't do this, avoid this. Now you should cut this example. And then ultimately, think of a self-driving car. So we're on this path. And so look, these are just a couple of examples. I could go on and on. We don't have much time today, but you can just see how exciting it is. And this is why, we're making this, it's an exciting time to be in healthcare. It's an exciting time to be at Medtronic with our product portfolio and our technology capabilities and all the clinical research we're doing. And we're blessed to have a healthy financial balance sheet that we can continue to invest in this. And what it's doing is it's bringing Medtronic to more patients around the world and having a bigger a bigger impact. If we go to the next page, I thought I would talk a little bit about, kind of end here on some COVID lessons learned, some of which I touched upon, already. So first, this remote everything, what we mean by that is, with, physicians and patients hesitant to interact too much, or, you want to have, face-to-face interactions, that is, you want less foot traffic in the hospital, particularly during time of a pandemic. And so a lot of remote technologies have kicked in, remote, like telehealth, remote patient management, remote device management. So managing devices remotely. So, like our pacemakers, you used to have to, adjust the settings in the pacemaker, at least check it on a regular basis, maybe every 3 months. Patients would go visit their physician, go to the hospital to do this. Now we do this all for many of our products, and many of our physicians that have adopted this technology do this all remotely. We're also doing a lot of physician training remotely. One of the big things that the healthcare systems around the world rely on Medtronic for is physician training on the latest procedures. And we're now using, virtual reality, augmented reality, virtual collaboration tools to do this. So I'd say, this whole remote and virtual, I think this is a lesson learned from COVID, and that we can still provide, in many cases, not all cases, world-class healthcare in a more remote and virtual way, and also training each other, training physicians, and training our employees. We could do this in a more remote or virtual way, and I don't think we're going back even as the pandemic eases. The second big thing that we learned in COVID is the importance of collaboration and partnerships. When we were faced with this horrible pandemic, and the whole healthcare industry, and even those outside of healthcare, came to help and work together. And for Medtronic during the pandemic, we are one of the world's leading ventilator providers. We're like 1/3 of the world's critical care ventilators, and we couldn't make ventilators fast enough. So we actually open sourced, put our designs of one of our ventilators online, and worked with organizations all around the world to help manufacture those, but also help innovate these ventilators and make them better so they can be remotely controlled. We partnered with Intel over the pandemic to put more computing power in our ventilators, so healthcare workers can operate the ventilators from outside the room, or monitor patients on our ventilators outside the ICU, change the settings without going into the ICU. We work with Elon Musk at SpaceX to supply a critical part to the ventilators that he was making for his spacecraft. Also could be applied to our ventilator. It's a particular valve that moves gases around. So we have new partners, and partnered with a lot of healthcare systems, and to help deliver goods and services and trainings all during the pandemic. And so I think hospital stakeholders around healthcare realize that for us to move the needle in a pandemic or outside of a pandemic, we have to really embrace true collaboration and partnership, which is something that I think has been lacking in healthcare. And then the third, as I talked about throughout this discussion, is technology. Technology. Look, we've seen firsthand, the pandemic has highlighted a lot of lessons that it's not about, we can't just work harder to solve healthcare. Many healthcare workers, many of you, are suffering from burnout and stress, and there's constraints on how many, and we just can't hire unlimited people. There's labor constraints around the world. Yet healthcare moves on. People want to get better faster. People want more access to care, and the costs have to go down. So the only way to do this is through technology. And I keep saying this, technology is the path forward. It's so powerful. And I really believe that governments and health systems around the world, and private industry, investing in technology in a strategic way and bringing it to market with more value-based arrangements, between industry and healthcare systems and governments, is the path forward. And I like I said, I just talked about some of our technology and how exciting it is, and why we're so excited at Medtronic. And so I'll just end on this final slide here. really, if you go to the next slide, is it talks about, we just rebranded the company. Like I said, a lot of change at Medtronic all around, our ambition to be the global leader in healthcare technology, but sticking to our mission of alleviating pain, restoring health, and extending life for all patients around the world. And, our new tagline is engineering the extraordinary. So talking about technology and the extraordinary things technology can do for patients, for providers. And a key to this is partnership. I just talked about that lesson learned in the pandemic. And I really, on behalf of myself and our leader in Latin America, Hugo, who's just a wonderful person. If you don't know him, I hope most of you have had a chance to work with him. And he's just somebody we're really proud of at Medtronic to have on our team, and not just be on the team, but be a leader and the leader that he is, who's committed to alleviating pain, restoring health, extending life. He's committed to the innovation, and he's committed to you, all the stakeholders in healthcare, and partnering with them. And so really proud to have you, Hugo, on the team and guiding me and giving me feedback. And I really look forward. I'm a very people-oriented person. I like to meet people and talk to people in person. Zoom has been okay, but it's not my ideal means of communicating. And I really can't wait to be able to come back to the region and meet with you firsthand and listen to what you feedback that you have on us, on healthcare, and really constantly evolve what we're doing to meet your needs. And I just want to end by saying thank you for giving me this time today. It really is my honor. I hope even through Zoom, you get a little bit of a sense of who I am and where my passion lies. And again, I look forward to meeting you in person here over the next year or 2 years, and as I get down into the region as soon as possible here. So thank you. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Hugo.
Thank you, Geoff. What a nice way to start our forum. Really, the commitment that Medtronic has to transform and continue lead, it's extraordinary. So thank you very much, Geoff. And we're going to continue with our next chapter. And for this, I'll move it on to for Claudia. So Claudia, please.